wrestling fans, it is I, Steve Fall, and welcome to Tank Count. On today's edition, I am talking to one of my favorite people in the entire world. It's Candice Michelle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great. We were talking off camera about family. We have our hands full with family, with children, with spouses, with projects. So much going on in my life. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. Let's talk about everything. Because last time we talked about, you revealed to me, your health scares and your situations. Let's talk about that first. How are you doing?
Well, I'm excited to announce that it's my 3-year anniversary of having panic attacks. Now, I don't know who's really excited about that normally, but you got to kind of shift your mind and be like, hey, why did I have to go through this? What brought this on? And seeing the other side of the darkness is kind of really exciting. But to think I've been in that for 3 years, it's like, holy crap, wow, when life hits you, it can really hit you. And so just building myself back, piece by piece, and excited to share that journey with people.
Good to hear, because obviously, it's something you have to deal with. You can't just crawl up in your bed and put your covers over your face and never come out again, because obviously life will always throw challenges at you, but you are kicking ass, taking names. Let's talk about everything going on with you, because you have so many projects on hand right now.
Look at this project. Look at this is my new project. I'm the project.
Where's your sledgehammer? Where's your Triple H sledgehammer to knock down walls?
Sledgehammer, did I ever tell you the story about my wand and how I wanted it to be like Triple H's sledgehammer?
No, let's talk about that first then.
Great story. So I was traveling and we would go to stripper stores, and at the stripper stores we would find our gear. It's just what we did back in the day. And so we're in there and it's like Halloween, and there's this like star wand for a costume. And I look at Tori Wilson and Victoria and I'm like, I'm going to use this. And this is going to be my new gimmick. And they're like, whatever, like, get your costume, totally don't care. So we get to Raw that day and we're having a match. It was a tag team match and Fit Finley's in the ring. And I take my flimsy star wand down to the ring and I look at Fit and he's kind of like, what is this girl doing? And I'm like, I want to use my star wand like Triple H uses his sledgehammer. And he was just speechless, like, what does this girl think she's going to do? And it just, that belief just came to become, and I used that. Okay, maybe it's not as cool as a sledgehammer, but they turned that flimsy wand into a steel wand, like that really was like a weapon. And that steel wand like totally got over. And I was like, that was just such a cool story of like, seeing somebody you admire doing something and just coming up with your own idea and it getting over.
Wow. Now I remember you having that one, but did they sell that as a merchandise piece?
You know what? They never did back then. And now so many people want to make the wand. So I actually got a shipment made, and it's actually kind of one of the coolest things. It was funny because years later, I was backstage and Fit Finley came up to me and he said, do you have any of those star wands? And I was like really confused because obviously it was kind of funny to him back then.
Yeah.
And he said, all his daughter kept asking him for years was for a star wand for me. And I was like, yeah, I got you.
My God, why not? I wonder why they weren't selling those. They did not see money in women wrestlers maybe at the time, divas. I don't know. That's weird. That's because it seems like
there really wasn't that money put into us women wrestlers back then. Maybe it was put into Trish Stratus a little bit, Lita a little bit, maybe the top two of the time. But even for people, say like Tori Wilson and Victoria, people who, really paved the way and made a huge impact, there wasn't even t-shirts for them. There'd be a Divas t-shirt with all of us on it, maybe. We're lucky if that was, kind of part of the thing. Being on the video game was always a huge thing, but having individual merchandise back then, it wasn't a thing for us.
Interesting, because you bring up Trish, you bring up Lita, even Victoria. They had merchandise for them. They had shirts, but they were, they were sometimes labeled with other people, but always they had their own. Was there a point of like contention of being like, well, hello, I have this wand. It's getting over. I'm the champion. People are enjoying me. Go daddy, Playboy. Like, there's money on the table here. Why am I not seeing more money in my pockets?
Yeah, back then you're just so into your craft, or for me, anyways. I was so new and learning on the road and growing every part of my character and my wrestling skill that was kind of the last thing on my mind. Obviously, we needed to make money to put food on the table and all of that stuff, but it wasn't ever a priority, I don't think, for any of us. We just loved what we did and we worked hard to do that. And nowadays, you see it on such a different level and a grander scale, and then you're like, oh yeah, I should have had this, or I should have done this, or all the should haves. But that's part of just kind of paving the way.
Of course, because I remember as a child going to see Al Snow at a wrestling event, and they were not selling like the actual mannequin head; they were selling foam heads that someone had to have a marker and be like, help me backwards on it. And I convinced my father to buy me one. My dad's like,
yeah,
you need this? Like it's not the head you see. That'd be like them selling you a wand, like, but it's not a wand. It's like, oh, it's just a stick. It's Candice Michelle's stick. Like, but that's not what she has. She has a wand. Wow.
Well, I see you got some really cool stuff in the background there that you practiced,
yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I've been a wrestling fan as long as I can remember, so I have ridiculous amounts of things. I have magazines like his one, Bruce the Barber Beefcake. This is from what's this?
Oh wow,
May 1990. So like these are. It looks like these are printed yesterday. So a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of stuff. So when I die, and my wife's like, "What am I going to do with all this stuff?" Like, I don't know. Keep it. Awesome. It'll be worth money. It is worth money. But God, speaking of championships and everything going on with you, the Butterfly Divas Championship, what were your thoughts on that championship? Because people, as time went on, hated it. But yet it's merchandise and it was selling.
It worked. I think there's something so special to me about the women's championship. And, it's just really, especially nowadays with everything going on. I mean, let's be honest. I don't really care what you got going on in your life, your race, sex, gender, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the women were paving a way for women, and that was our thing back then. And so to be the women's championship, it was a huge, huge ordeal. And, the butterfly belt just kind of seemed, I'm not going to say less than, because when anybody wins a belt, it's an incredible experience. And that means that they've worked super hard to earn that. So if I were to earn that, I would have thought it was a huge thing for me as well. But just having the titles that I earned, they were just a reflection of who I was, a women's champion, a 24/7 champion. It's just who I am in my life. And so they have more meaning to me than, say, a butterfly belt. But I think to other people who want it, it would have that kind of meaning to them as well.
Of course, many people had it, AJ Lee, Paige, other people like that. But at the same time, like I bring my children, I have a 6-year-old daughter, I bring her to a wrestling event. She's very pumped to see the women wrestle, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, people like that. She's very happy to see them. I got them championship belts. They weren't butterfly shaped. They were, championships are shaped like a belt, like the traditional, you have the women's championship behind you, the 24/7 championship shaped like that. She already has butterfly shaped things. She already has things of that nature. So having a gold belt to represent your achievements and contributions, to me, at least for me, because I never won a Divas Championship, but it's where I never will, probably. You never know. Society's strange. So though I think her having a belt to buy makes her feel like, oh, I'm like the people on TV. Not just wrestling. Any aspect of track and field, gymnastics, it's a gold medal. It's not a butterfly shaped medal,
100%. Well, and that's a great example. It's like you look at the Olympics and it's like, you just know it's a round gold medal. Like that's legendary, and so when you change the shape, you get it's like new age and, trying to have creative ideas, but sometimes just having that legendary thing, it's like, you've earned that after years and years and years of people competing for something like that.
Of course. Now, you've inspired so many people over the years, because when you came into the WWE, it was through a Divas search contest. And obviously, the weight on your shoulders is going to be heavier than someone who was like, well, I worked from high school gymnasiums to the indies to the WWE. I've earned this spot.
Yeah.
What kind of pressure would you give to another person, a girl or a guy, trying to get into the business, realizing there are different avenues? It's not just
Yeah.
follow the way of the indies. There are ways to get in. Plenty of people are coming right from high school, from college, in this new performance center way. They're grabbing people. What advice would you give to someone who's realizing they're not coming in the traditional way?
Well, I think it's just believing in your way, thinking outside of the box. Yes, there's always people, like, you get role models, right? Like I have role models in so many areas of my life. I have coaches in areas of my life, but I don't want to be them. They're already here on this planet. Like, I need to be the next greatest me. And you see this with wrestlers. There's no two wrestlers who are alike. They're all so unique in their individuality and how they got there. So for me, I didn't even know there was indies. I didn't even know that existed. I mean, it wasn't even a bane of my existence.
Right.
So for me to get there, I thought that was the way to get there. And so people have other ways. Some people get to stardom and then to wrestling. Some people they're wrestled through high school, like you were mentioning. And so it's whatever your gifts are, and just pursuing your ways and discovering that on your own. And that's what makes you unique to this company.
I love that when you said, "Who I want to be the greatest me." There's
Yeah.
so many ways to get here, but I want to be the greatest me, because so many people are compared to other people. But what about me? The whatabisms. Oh, why does
Yeah.
that person have this and I don't have this? Why does that
Yeah.
well, maybe because you stop comparing yourself to other people and focus on yourself and what your goals are. So now, what are your
Yeah.
goals in today's world? Because Candice, I know you have so much going on. Let's talk about some of your
Yeah.
projects.
So, this whole anxiety thing, and being my 3-year anniversary, for a long time, I think maybe on the last show, I've been telling you I want to help other people out on this journey. This was, I was on the depths of hell, my friend. Like, everything I loved to do was taken away from me, from parenting, from getting my nails done, my hair done, just things you love to do. And one day it's just taken and stripped from you. And so many times I go to these appearances and I've posted very, very little about my story because I've been in my story, like, I'm not able to share that yet. And people will come up to me at every appearance and say, I'm so happy you spoke out about this. What can I do? I had this guy come up to me, and his wife had just died in a car accident, and he was having extreme anxiety, couldn't even leave the house. And I'm like, from the little bit that I've shared, how dare I not share more? And so I was struggling with, how do I do this right? How do I do this? Because I want it to look professional, right? I want it to look put together. I want to have PDFs and this and that, or I want to have a certificate, but I don't have a certificate, and it's funny because I was watching this post, and in certificate, a little kid wrote certificate. I don't know if I can say that on your show.
You can say anything you want.
Okay, so certificate, right? And I was like, that's it. It's like just doing it. So I'm starting a program. It's going to be launching August 7th, Monday. Every Monday, I am going to be live. It's going to be $9 a month. In the first show, I'm going to teach you 3 ways to get rid of anxiety instantly. And this isn't because I'm a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a doctor, but I have the experience of going through this and trying things over and over, from the medicines to the breath work to the ulterior, methods that are out there. And I found out the number one thing for me over these 3 years was support. And I built a team around me, and it's consistent. Like, every 2 weeks, I do this. But what is it that got me from the depths of hell and literally seeing, like, why do some people commit suicide and that's instant, to standing on my own 2 feet, building a business and launching this program? And so it's called the Anxiety Project, hence my little project hat. Because I'm always a project manager in my life. I'm always building things from the ground up, but this is a founder's program. So it's not fancy. You're not going to get these PDFs. It's not going to be long. We're going to be on for 30 minutes, and you're going to get real life things. And for the first time ever, I'm going to share my story. I'm going to share my story from when I was on the ground in the mall and 911 was called, to today, this is the first time I am announcing that you can be live with me every Monday if you're struggling with these emotions and the worry and the doubt and the fear. And I was never that person. And somehow it just hit me like a ton of bricks and it knocked me down. But we're going to just build it up. And it's a whole project. The whole thing is a project. You know, it's not just my project, but it's like, how can you fit yourself in there and we can build this together?
Wow. I'm so happy to hear that you're going to share your story a little bit more with the rest of the world, and hopefully people can listen to your advice and realize that, you know, we're not all alone. And sometimes we
Yeah.
do need someone to help us out, and a little support never hurts. Because, you know, we talked about it before. I can't remember the last time we talked, but it must have been, you know, 5 months ago. And you were sharing with me about what happened to you in the mall. And you moved, and a lot of these things, COVID. There was so much happening in the
Yeah.
realm of your life that really affected you. And obviously, like I'm a father. You know, I'm a husband, and I can't imagine what you were going through with going through this every day, not just, and it's not just every couple of weeks. This was every day happening to you,
Yeah.
and not being able to be
every
the white
day.
person you want to be.
Yeah, just losing your, like, passing out. Like you go from being this wrestler, this champion, right? And I lived that persona in my life to one day, like, I can't get out of bed without passing out and falling on the ground. Like, you're like, whoa, like, what happened? And then you got to reverse engineer that, and you're like, okay, that happened and that happened, and okay, that's been building up for a really long time. So now let's start unpacking that. And that's a wild journey to go through. I mean, going through that without support. And I know it's ironic, but it's like I needed tag team partners. And I kind of joke about that, but I'm not joking, because the truth is there's so many times still in my life I tag people in. You know, every 2 weeks I see my spiritual guidance. Every 2 weeks I get my IV. You know, I'm doing this supplement, I'm doing this blood work, all that stuff. It's just these people supporting me, saying you got it. And the craziest thing was the people who I thought would support me couldn't. Couldn't. Those people that were closest to me, the people that you rely on, like your family, like, they did not understand. And at some point it almost felt worse. And going through that is like crushes your soul. You're like, hey, you're the one that I'm supposed to be able to turn to no matter what. And then in reality, it's like these people come out of the woodworks. I had my agent come out of the woodworks and be like, oh, I've been suffering from this for so long, try this. And I was like, out of all people, you're supporting me, you know? So support doesn't always come in the way that you think it looks. And so we're going to just be really raw, no pun intended, but, you know, I'm not coming on with the fake eyelashes, and, you know, like, we're coming on, we're building, you know, like, this is my story, and how can I help serve you through this process in your life?
Wow. So where can people tune in for this?
Yeah, so if they can just go to CandiceMichelle.com. You're going to get a pop-up window. You just subscribe there. It's going to be super easy. We'll be live on Zoom every Monday. I want this, it'll also be recorded. So if you can't make that time, if you subscribe, you can just go to the link. It'll send you the recording if you want to listen to it in your car, if you want to watch it. But if you are on there live, I will stay on for live Q&A. It's a 30-minute show, but I'll be in there for up to an hour. So if you're really struggling, you need some support, I got you. You know, I'm just there because it supports me. Like, as I remind people of all the tools I use, I'm like, oh, I forgot that tool today. I forgot to take my walk today. You know, I forgot to get grounded in nature. Whatever it is, it keeps me focused. You know, the best coaches are the ones that are still learning.
True. And you know, it's funny is because people well, it's not funny, but people probably think, well, Candice Michelle, she was on TV, you know, she was this, she did that. Oh, she must be, you know, living the high. Well, no one realizes that health doesn't matter if you were famous or not famous. Your health is going to take you down if it wants to take you down. It doesn't care that you've been somewhere and haven't been somewhere. But the fact that you're sharing your story now, I think, is inspiring to so many people, because, you know, I go through it. Everyone goes through something where you're feeling low, you're back up. You're feeling low, you're back up. You don't know why. And obviously your story is going to inspire a lot of people, because people look up to you and they're going to see, oh, well, she did this. She's come
Yeah.
around. She's still going through it, but yet here she is. Because when we tried talking, go back 6 months ago around Thanksgiving, it was you told me, you finally revealed to me, like, hey, I'm having some problems, and I didn't know what the problems were, and obviously we talked about them a little bit, and you're still, I see you going to all these events, you know, you're going to New England Fan Fest, you're going to these things, but before that, it felt like you fell off the face of the earth, at least in the eyes of wrestling media, because you know, for someone like me looking for interviews, I found you, but somehow I was like, well, is she, what is she going to be like? How is she going to be? Is she going to be the same? Is she going to be mean? Is she going to be upset? Did she suddenly gain, 10,000 pounds? I don't know who she is, but through that, I think a friendship has been growing a little bit between us, and sharing your story for the rest of the world is going to be outstanding. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that, because it's going to be great to hear. I can't wait. That's going to be.
Well, and you got that firsthand. It was, you were asking just for a podcast interview, and I couldn't even get to sit here at a certain time because I didn't know if I would pass out or not. And finally, I just had to be real with you. I'm like, this guy must think I'm so flaky. So I got to tell him the truth, because I didn't want that image of me, because I'm not flaky. And I was like, I'm struggling. Like, I just don't know if I can be there at this time, because every day was such uncertainty for me. Yeah. And so to build that certainty and to share this with people that they can get through those times. By the way, I thought mine would be a lot faster than 3 years. And I was just realizing, I was like, wow, it took me 3 years to be standing on my feet. I thought I'd be standing on my feet in like 3 months. Like, I'm like, I go for it. I'm taking massive action. I'm going to do it. And it just kept knocking me down. And figuring that out was probably the hardest time of my life. And so to be here and to, be able to schedule an interview with you and be like, I'm going to show up. Like that's a win. People don't think of that as a win sometimes. I'm like, this is a massive, massive win, to put on your project hat and just acknowledge, like, we're all a work in progress. I'm under construction,
The caution tape, under construction. So
yes, watching you when you enter this round, by the way, once you go down the rabbit hole, you can't ungo down the rabbit hole.
Of course. Of course. I think forever now we're intertwined in stories and good times and bad times. So anytime I think you need an ear, I'm always here to listen. But
thank you.
Of course, and again, as we do this interview, that's different between what we've texted to each other, privately about family and friends and things like that as well. So it's like, sometimes you do an interview, this is peek behind the curtain. Sometimes you do an interview with someone and it's done and they hit and it's over, boop, they're done. They don't want anything to do with you. You did it what you wanted them to do. That's fine. And some people, you stay in contact. A lot of people I stay in contact with, and we've created relationships. So, but it's great to hear that you're doing much better, because, like you said, go back 6 months ago, you couldn't schedule a time for me. But with so many events coming up and you going to signings and appearances, is there a common question you often get asked? Because there must be the same type of realm. Like, I bet Mick Foley's asked about, hey, remember the time you were thrown off the Hell in the Cell? Yeah, I remember. Like, is there a common question that you constantly receive?
Well, recently it's just been shocking, because so much of it's been around the anxiety, and I've kind of been blown away because I haven't shared a lot of my story. I posted, some of the things, but I've been so in it. So when I've gotten that a lot, I was really like, okay, a lot of people are suffering from this. So that's one thing. And then recently I've just been getting, I think this was our interview last time. A lot of people, we talked about the heat I had with Melina.
Yes.
In the day, right? And so your interview got a lot of attention, and I did an appearance with her. And
oh, no.
By the way, things have been great until I walked into this appearance, and she was like really upset with me. And I was like, how? And she's like, I hear you telling people that I'm hard to work with. And I was like, where is this coming from? Like, this happened years ago. Like, we are cool with each other, right? Yeah. And she was just really hot with me. And she's like, you like blaming me. And I looked at her, I said, you were hard to work with. Like, do you not remember? Like, we were not friends. Like, we made it work because we weren't friends, And so that was just coming up just recently because, your podcast got a lot of attention around that, and people thought, oh, they're fighting now. I'm like, no, actually, we're not fighting now. But, you know, the way people kind of construe these words of where it is. And then, you know, just really touching on what happened back then and where we are now. And that's kind of been a cool transition for a lot of wrestlers in my realm right now. Like, you know, I got to go on vacation and hang out with Mickie James and her family. And I got to go to ODB's wedding. And I'm going to be seeing Victoria this weekend at a show and doing another one coming up for abused women with Tori Wilson. And it's like our lives of who we are now, it's really rewarding because it's lasted for decades, you know, like we're almost coming on to, you know, over, you know, like 15, 16 years of friendship and seeing people get married and stuff. So now people like, they're like, who do you hang out with? Who do you know? Who are you friends with? So that's just always been a question lately.
Oh, good. I'm hopefully Melina was okay. It's funny because I emailed her randomly and there's no response. So maybe, just maybe, my face in that thumbnail with you next to me is enough for her to go, that asshole, I'm not going to answer his email once. And, you know, whatever. I can't help what someone else says. But you didn't even say you had heat. You said you were hard to work with then. It's not like you said now she's hard to work with.
Well, you know what it was? It was one fan came up to her and said that, like, changed the words, the telephone game, right?
Of course.
And so she heard that, but just took it to heart and like lashed out at me. And I was like, whoa, like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, and then we had to go right into like a live Q&A for all the fans. And so we have like this heat between us. I'm like, okay, let's go. I felt like I was back in my wrestling days. Like, I'm not sure what's happening, but we're going to this Q&A and they're going to ask some questions and I'm going to be honest, you know?
Of course.
And afterwards we went out, we had some dinner together and she was like, I'm sorry, I think I overreacted. I was like, okay.
Were there other people here at this dinner or just you two?
Yeah, well, the agent was there and that brought us in. And I was confused with him. I was like, did you tell her I said something mean? Like, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I don't know what she's talking. Like, we were just so confused.
Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes you hear something from somebody and you just, in that moment, it hits you right, you know, and I was the brunt of it that day, but we got through it. We got through another match. That was another match for us and we survived.
Well, because when I interviewed you the first time, that was like, I think for me, it was like a unicorn interview because it was something that no one has done with you. I don't think before. I can't remember the last time you actually were on camera or spoke because of what you were going through. So a good portion of like a decade you were missing. So suddenly I got you and we did an interview. And so I asked you questions, we spoke, and suddenly, you know, whatever you say, everyone's going to take because like I haven't seen her in 10 years, so let's hear what she has to say. And I guess apparently people took your words and flipped them around and made headlines and pissed off Melina. But here we are now.
Well, you know what? Publicity is publicity.
That's right. That's
we
right.
did it.
We did it. Good news, bad news. It's still good. It's still news in my book. Let's talk about something that might make people go, really? Vince's Devils. Vince's Devils. Where is this pitched to you? Because there is a moment in time where Vince McMahon grabs your chest and saves your life. You have a chest cold. And of course, everyone knows how to fix that. Not medicine. Nope. It's grabbing someone's chest. How is this all pitched to you? Because from the eyeballs of today, it does not look good.
You know, I don't think that stuff is really pitched. It's just kind of like, you're going to have a segment with Vince McMahon and here is what you should say. And it kind of, and this kind of might have, it's not like grabbing my breast. It's like more of pitch like you're an actress in a scene of a, you know, like you go in as this character and you come out of that character. But it's funny, like Vince's Devils, like that is, you know, I think it happened so fast, but it's such a magical thing. Like I was just talking with Victoria about this. Like the three of us we're kind of freaking awesome. Like I don't really put myself over like that, but like getting these three women together, we're all so different. We're also caring and giving about the business, about others, about who we are today. And it's funny because nobody has ever booked the three of us together as Vince's Devils, ever.
Huh.
And we're just joking about this. We're like, how come people haven't got on this bandwagon yet? And so maybe after this, Vince's Devils will come back to life.
Yes, maybe we'll have to do one of those live Q&As, and I'll get you and Victoria and Tori, and we'll sit there and we'll talk about it out loud so people understand what you're saying is not taken out of context at all either.
Right.
We need all three of you in the room together to clarify the story that you're sharing or she's sharing or someone like that, because that's interesting, because Vince's Devils is something that people always bring up, I feel like, because it's one of those moments where like people look at Vince McMahon and they have ideas of whatever they want to think of him. You know, is he an entrepreneur, the greatest promoter of all time? You choose on what you want to label someone. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But Vince's Devils is something where it's like, okay, Vince has been involved with females before, and usually what happens in the storyline, they get launched. They get launched to like a new stratosphere. Trish Stratus, perfect example. Everyone Vince has been involved with who was a woman, Sable, you know, everyone went off to do greater things. And along with you, Victoria and Tori Wilson, I feel like after that, you know, we had so many different layers to each one of your characters. Did you look at that? Because you just said it wasn't really picture an actress coming in to do a scene where you're Vince's Devils. You're clearly supposed to be, I don't know, seduction would be the word. You're enamored by Vince McMahon because of his power on screen. Is that kind of how you pitched this?
No, it's funny. The three of us were together. We always drove on the road together. And so we went out one night and we did the typical Charlie's Angels pose, you know, all taking a photo together. And I was like, wait, we're not Charlie's Angels. We're Vince's Devils because, you know, we're all sassy. Well, you know, some of us a little more than the others. But I was like, and then we're like, yeah, Vince's Devils. And so we pitched that to Vince. And he was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And so we just kind of came out with this whole new thing. And it was fun because that's just kind of the characters we were back then. You know, we were all, or I was really about the seduction and the sex appeal. And, you know, that's just kind of the character I was back in those days. And so it was just natural to who I was. And the other two, you know, just being a part of that, you know, they're beautiful and sexy. Tori's obviously more the girl next door. And then Lisa was a little bit more of like the villain. And so we just had this threesome that we could work with, no pun intended.
No, you just said that. You know what's going to happen now. So like, Candice Michelle in a threesome with Tori Wilson and Victoria? What?
I mean, I think we do have a photo, the three of us in a bed that says Vince's Devils from some photo shoot we did. That's definitely online. But it was just fun for us. We just enjoyed it, you know, coming up with that gimmick.
Of course. Now, so your character you brought up was very seductive, you know, sensual, sexy. In today's world, I feel like when a woman is presented that way, the internet, at least Twitter, that's what I said on randomly, they go berserker crazy about it because they think women shouldn't be positioned that way, at least professional wrestling. They've always positioned as powerful, not seductive. What's your stance on that? Because it could work either way, but there seems to be this weird narrative. Like if you're trying to wear thongs and look too sexy, then you're not being taken seriously.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think, you know, nowadays on the internet, you're accused of everything, no matter what you say. You know, you're too sexy, you're too this, you're not, you know, respecting this person. I'm just over it. It's like, be who you are and be that. Like, I'm still like have that sexiness about me. It's very different. It's a much more mature kind of part to me, but it's who I am. Like, it's funny because back in the day, I remember coming down to the ring and I always had this like seductive look. And Vince, I come back, he's like, you got to smile when you walk down to the ring. And so I tried it one time and I was just like, and I remember there were some girls that would go down and like Mickey, you know, she's like happy-go-lucky and smiling.
Skipping.
Sometimes when she's a face. And I was like, tried that. And I was like, this is so not who I am. Like, it felt so awkward, like smiling, and like, it was like, that's not me. And so it's just be who you are, and people got to get over like this whole thing that they're going through. Like, come on, people. Like, you know, even so many comedians nowadays, like they can't, comedians' job is to make fun of people. You know, they make fun of white people, Black people, Asian people, you know, straight people, gay people, like going to the whatever. It's like, let's have some fun. And I think it's the people who are not confident in themselves are the ones online, you know, starting this whole thing like, I'm not respected. Well, you don't respect yourself. Like, if you respect yourself, I don't need anybody to respect me. I respect myself. Like, if you don't respect me, you're not in my circle. It's simple. Like, if I force you to say, Steve, you got to respect me, and this is who I am, and you must like it, like, you're not going to like it, you know? It's like a kid. You know, if you tell your kid, don't touch that red ball in the playroom, you can touch any other toy but the red ball. Of course, they want the red ball.
Of course.
You know, so it's just psychology. So people out there that are like, you can't do this, you can't say this, you can't be this. It's like, no, I don't want to be that now, actually. You know, like, stop telling me what to do. Let me just be me and you be you. It's simple.
Yes, I agree. I 100% agree with you. You know, I don't care what you do as long as you don't shove it in my face.
Mm-hmm.
You can be whoever you want to be.
And as long as you don't shove it in my kids' face.
Yes, agreed.
Like, I will teach my kids what I want to teach them when it's appropriate to teach them. Yep. You don't get to decide when you want to teach my kids about anything. Yep. You know, I mean, like nowadays in schools, you know, I have to sign a release when my kids learn about sex ed, and, you know, like those classes, like, hey, do you want your kid to learn about this? Do you feel like they're mature enough or at an age to learn about this? And I'm like, yes, I feel they're ready for this at this age. But I don't want to be in kindergarten, them learning about the different sexes and stuff in kindergarten. They don't need to know that. They don't understand that, you know? So many states pushing these agendas on kids. I'm like, once you start putting my kids into it, this is a hard no. It's a hard no. You know, you force it on people, it's a no. But forcing it on kids, you know, that's a whole different story.
I agree. Yeah, I remember in 7th grade, you know, you're in sex ed. Even as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, you're not mature enough to sit there and listen to that. A girl asked a question about semen in the class, and everyone's laughing hysterically because no one has the maturity level. I still think farts are funny. You know what I mean? I'm a grown-ass man with 3 kids. So the maturity levels, depending where you are in life. But yeah, I agree with that. You know, be who you want to be. That's fine with me. But do not push that shit in my face or my faces. I don't care what you want to do with your life, but keep your life out of mine.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Let's talk about the Super Bowl in 2005, though, because you became one of the premier commercials that year. The GoDaddy.com, Miss GoDaddy.com to be exact. How does this come together? Because this is something in years have gone by when they play the commercials, top 10, top 20 Super Bowl commercials. You're always on that list probably because of, you know, the way you looked and danced and seductiveness. But at the same time, it was a good commercial. Like, how did this come to be?
Well, this was a really massive commercial, and they were auditioning in all the major states like Chicago, LA, New York. And back in the day, I had to audition via satellite, which was very high technology. Now we're like normal stuff. Back then, it was like, I'm doing what? I gotta like perform for this TV. And the owner, Bob Parsons, I guess just instantly, the cool thing was they let us ad lib. So they're like, we're going to give you some lines and then we'll throw some stuff at you and you just ad lib. And really that's what got me the job. It was, I mean, there's so many beautiful women out there in all these states auditioning. So it was just that, like, flying off the cuff, letting me be who I was. And so I got booked on that. The day of the commercial, I knew it was a Super Bowl commercial. So this is a huge thing when you're an actress, you know, to land one of these. So I prepare in the day before, like my outfits are ready, you know, my hair, my nails. And I wake up the next morning with the worst cold. Like, I swear I woke up with the flu. I have no idea what happened. And I was like, there's no way I'm not filming this commercial. Like, I've worked years to land a Super Bowl commercial. So I show up there, that poor makeup artist kept having to retouch my face. I was sneezing, I was a mess. But because it was that play on the Janet Jackson, wardrobe malfunction, they pulled my commercial, and they booked 2 spots, and they pulled the second one. And I had no idea why. I thought, these are expensive commercials. I thought, oh, maybe GoDaddy didn't want to pay for the second one. You don't get a deal if you buy a second one. It's still a fortune to buy a commercial. So I just thought, oh, they didn't buy 2 spots. And then that next day I had, something like 60 voice messages the morning when I woke up. And I was worried. I thought, oh, somebody, got hurt back home, because I was living in LA. I'm from Wisconsin. And it was all these people wanting to interview me. And I was so confused. I was like, what happened? And then, word got out on how they pulled the commercial, and it was this lawsuit. And really was a big break, for me, which is funny because I don't really believe in big breaks. You work for big breaks, but as long as you keep working, you get a big break. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a big break for me, obviously, because all that media attention that, came off of that. Then I had, I think, 7 more commercials with them afterwards. So, and my career with them as their spokesmodel was over a decade long. Even after I was pregnant, they still kept me on their payroll, which was really, really generous of them, just kind of saying, hey, you helped launch this company. And they were really respectful that way. Beautiful company.
Is that a common thing? Do you know of other actresses who were in the commercials? Is that a common thing to keep someone like yourself or individuals on the payroll this long?
No, it wasn't a common thing. I mean, I think I was, by the time I was having my second child, that's when our contract like fully ended. They renewed it every year, so they could have ended it any year. It wasn't like a 10-year contract. But that was when Bob was selling the business, and so he wasn't the main owner, and they were taking a different route to kind of go after small businesses more. The company had already launched, and everybody knew what it was, but for them to just keep me on that long after I wasn't, actively making commercials and stuff was just really kind and respectful of them.
Wow. Because you had a back-to-back banger of a year, because 2005, GoDaddy.com, 2006, Playboy. So did that Playboy deal come from the commercial, you believe?
What's crazy is I actually booked GoDaddy. It was GoDaddy and WWE in the same month. Like, I was signing contracts in the same month. So it was the only reason why WWE couldn't take me off of GoDaddy, because otherwise, WWE just owns every aspect of your career once you're with them. But because my contracts were signed in the same month, they couldn't have any part of that, which was good for me, and good for them. It launched them as well. But I did get yelled at from them. They're like, you have to tell us about Super Bowl commercials and this stuff happening. I was like, I obviously didn't know I was going to be like super famous from a commercial, otherwise I would have happily told you to get a push, and then Jay Leno called me to have me on, and it was on a Monday, and they're like, oh, you can't go on the show. You have to be at Raw. And I was like, no, I'm going on Jay Leno. Like, what are my chances of getting on Jay Leno? And finally they came around. They're like, okay, you can have off to go on Jay Leno. I was like, okay, thanks. I was going anyway.
See, I'm happy you said that, because I kind of wanted to bring that up. Where wouldn't they be happy that you're in a Super Bowl commercial and you work for the WWE? That's like oh, sweet, we signed this beautiful girl who's talented. Oh, we also get a Super Bowl commercial out of her for free. Perfect. Yeah. We can advertise and say she was on that commercial, because years went by. I think Stacy Keibler and maybe even Chris Jericho were on Dancing with the Stars. That was on Mondays. So you wouldn't promote it. They wouldn't promote it. Right. Hello, and this is a time, unfortunately, in today's world, mainstream like Hollywood musicians want to be involved with the WWE. Go back then, not so much. So they were ignoring mainstream audiences who could maybe come over and watch your Raws and your SmackDowns and your pay-per-views by completely never mentioning they're on Dancing with the Stars because you're worried they're going to switch over. Do you think the Dancing with the Stars audience is going, what should I do tonight? Watch Raw or Dancing with the Stars? They're not the same audience.
No, but I also think if they would have promoted, like you said, back then, I think it was TiVo was like the coolest thing,
Yeah.
right? And you could record the shows that you wanted. And I would have, if I see like Stacy Keibler on there, I'm like, oh, I want to see what she's like as a wrestler, because you don't picture somebody of her look and statuesque and beauty to be a wrestler. So I want to go and see her wrestling. So you are right that it would go hand in hand. But WWE was one of those places where they just owned everything and wanted control of everything. And so to kind of share you with anything, if it wasn't their idea, it was like forbid back then.
Did you have ideas that or opportunities that they shut down because it wasn't theirs?
Oh, I had so many ideas, and I had terrible ideas too, but I thought they were great. I remember emailing Stephanie McMahon when I first learned, oh, we can pitch storylines. Okay. So I was like, okay, we can pitch storylines. We can send it to her email. And somehow I decided that I just wanted to name my moves and pitch those. And I think one was like the orgasmic armbar, like they were terrible ideas. And I never got a response. And I was thinking, is she doing this? And then later on, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to like pitch a storyline, not just like the name. I was so green. And so it's really, I could just see them behind the scenes like, do you believe what this girl's sending me? But at least she's trying. I was trying, but
Yeah.
I terrible ideas.
Oh my God. I can only imagine the forward of that email being like, let's just send this to everybody and be like, did you see she wants to name one of her moves? The word orgasm's in it. Orgasm. I love it though, because it would have worked. It would have worked. It would have worked. People, there's many things, like even now with a character like Rhea Ripley, who's on every show, it seems, in the WWE, she's doing this like sexualized pin to women where she's pretty much, humping them. And you're like, and you look at it and you go, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what you're doing. But the commentary is never mentioning like this looks sexualized.
Right,
but the pictures
right.
are on Instagram and on Twitter and everywhere, being like, this is a little steamy. Like,
yeah.
so the fact that they're saying no to that, but yet they say yes to Playboy because you're a part of the WWE and Playboy. Was that their idea? Did you get this? Like, how does this all come together though?
Yeah, this was actually their idea. They had a contract for a while with Playboy. That's why every year there was kind of somebody on Playboy.
Yeah.
So this came from them, but they chose with Playboy who would be offered that contract on the roster. And for me, this was a dream come true, because when I moved to LA, I had done some special editions Playboy, which is like, they would call it College Girls or Wet and Wild. It's Playboy, but it's not the main magazine, so it doesn't get the notoriety or the attention of it. But it was something I always wanted to do. And I'll never forget, I was doing one of those shoots. Oh, I was doing the Playboy catalog. They hired me to be the catalog model, and I was on the cover of that. But once again, it's nothing like, only people that are really into like Playboy things would have seen that. And so the makeup artist was talking to me, and I was like, oh yeah, it's my dream to be a playmate. And she looked at me and she said, oh. And I was like, oh. And she goes, well, you'll never be a playmate. And I was like, why? And she goes, well, once you do their special editions, they won't put you in the main magazine. And it like crushed my heart. I was like, it was just a dream for me. Like, some women dream of that. Some people don't. For me back then, moving to LA was one of those things I wanted to do. And so to have that come full circle and to be on the cover. So when you're on the cover, you get paid about 10 times more than a playmate. So you're the celebrity on the cover. And so for that to happen, I was like, don't believe anybody when they say you can't do something or that's the way it used to be. It's because you can still do it. It's up to you to do it.
Look at you. Always inspiring. Always inspiring. I love it. You're such a positive person, because so much can happen in someone's life when someone says no to you. But if you don't accept that no and you push forward, well, you never know. I always bring up the thing with people. Hey, you never know if they're going to say yes or no unless you ask.
Yeah.
And some people might say yes, and it's great. Some people say no and crush your soul. But, you didn't ask. Obviously you got what you wanted out of this. And Playboy, go daddy. Oh, man, you've done so much. I know we talked about it before, but I love the fact that when you got injured, well, I don't love it. It's kind of disappointing you got injured, your collarbone off the top rope versus Beth Phoenix, and they just kept playing that shit on repeat when don't try us at home. But yet you're at home suffering from this collarbone injury. And it's like, ladies and gentlemen, do not try this at home. And then you are like, just smashing down on your collarbone. Did it ever rub you the wrong way? They're like, you really got injured. It wasn't she's injured. Like, you got injured.
Yeah, no, actually, when you're a wrestler, you feel like you are the coolest wrestler if you make that list. And for a woman to make that list is very rare. Most women aren't on that list. So it was like, damn, I made that list. Like, that's kind of cool, So we don't look at it that way. We look at it like, it's like we're bearing arms. It's like our battle wounds. We're like, that happened to me and I survived. I mean, it's cool because I survived, right? Like, if I broke my neck, I might not be saying these words today, but I didn't. And so it's crazy, but yeah, I made that list.
You made it. You made it. And you've done so much more in life too. You've made it as a mother, a provider, a great person. Obviously you have projects coming out next week, August 7th, I believe is the date you said. If you go to CandiceMichelle.com, you can tune in every Monday to hear the guidance and your words to help supply people through troubling times with your experience. And I think that's going to help a lot of people in this world, non-wrestling fans, wrestling fans. I think people are going to tune in, enjoy what you're going to share, because you're still creating chapters in this struggle that you're going through. But someday that book will be closed and you'll be able to share how and why this all happened. And maybe someday we'll get back together one more time and we'll share a good time, because so much is happening, fan fests, you're doing signings, everything is going up in the world for you. So I just want to say it's been a pleasure again to talk to you today here in Tank Out, sharing your story. Again, inspiring, so inspiring. But I've been Steve Fall. She's Candice Michelle. Check out CandiceMichelle.com on August 7th to hear her story. Good times all around. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for everything. And I just want to say thank you, because you're right. Like, we built a friendship through this, and it's not every day that you build that with somebody, that when you're going on their podcast or they're patient with you through your struggles. So this has been really meaningful to me, powerful for me. And I just like that I could have made a friend through all this and in my struggles too. So thank you. And thanks for having me on the show again.